How do candidates secure the millions of votes they need to win elections? Most of them appeal to certain groups, otherwise known as coalitions, and focus on winning the support of these specific groups of people. But this is no small task. In 1980 and 2012, the elections were very similar in terms of the coalitions that were focused on. However, the coalitions changed over the years in such a way that the attempts of the candidates to win the support of said coalitions had differing outcomes in the two elections.
The 1980 election was influenced by events that occurred in the decade of the 70s. American trust in the government was extremely low due to the Watergate scandal of the Nixon administration, which was when members of the Nixon administration were found breaking into Democratic headquarters to find information in order to ensure Nixon's re-election.
I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of America first.
When Ford became president after Nixon's resignation, he pardoned Nixon for his crimes, further angering the American people. The war in Vietnam was also a touchy subject with the citizens of our nation, further breaking the trust between the people and their leaders.
When Democrat Jimmy Carter ran for president in 1976, he simply needed to ensure the American people that he was a man with good morals whom they could put their trust in for him to be elected into office. However, his lack of political experience would soon start to rise to the surface with the unsuccessfulness of many of his policies. These included his decision to cede control of the Panama Canal back to Panama, and also his lack of success in rescuing the victims of the Iranian hostage crisis. When Republican Ronald Reagan went up against Carter in 1980, he simply had to state that little had changed or improved in America during the 4 years Carter was in office in order to secure his victory.
Ronald Reagan had a very specific group he focused on winning the support of leading up to November of 1980. These included the white middle class, the wealthy, men, evangelical Christians, and the elderly demographic. Reagan had different ways of targeting this coalition, and one of them was going to the Southern strategy. Reagan basically disregarded the African American vote and chose to focus merely on the white vote. This was successful considering Reagan won 56% of the white vote. Reagan also used the events of the 70s to his advantage. He was seen as a stable, conservative candidate to the white middle-class citizens who were concerned about the rise of different liberal groups like gays and hippies.
Carter, on the other hand, did not really have a specific coalition and mainly relied on his morals to carry him through yet another election. This was even evident in his ad campaign.
Though he carefully observes our historic separation of church and state, Jimmy Carter is a deeply and clearly religious man. He takes the time to pray privately and with Rosalind each day. Under the endless pressure of the presidency, where decisions change and directions change, and even the facts change, this man knows that one thing remains constant: his faith.
This was obviously not a good strategy considering Reagan won by a landslide with a staggering 489 electoral votes.
The 2012 election is very similar to the 1980 election in the sense that the coalitions which were targeted by the candidates, especially the Republican candidates, were extremely similar. In 2012, Mitt Romney focused on white, middle-class Americans, the elderly, evangelicals, and corporate America, almost the exact same groups which were members of the Reagan coalition. Barack Obama's coalition included groups like women, the working class, gays, African Americans, Hispanics, and the youth. Even though Carter did not target a specific coalition in 1980, these were the groups which he ended up winning the support of over Reagan. However, even though he won their support, there simply was not enough of them voting to give him an edge over Reagan. For example, only about 10% of voters in 1980 were African American.
Obama was the incumbent president leading up to the 2012 election. The members of his coalition were now much more politically powerful than they were in 1980. This increase in power was a result of many factors, including legislation passed regarding these minority groups. One example is the Immigration Act of 1965, which allowed more immigrants, like Hispanics, into the United States based on skills and relationships with citizens. The children of these immigrants are now coming of age, increasing the number of eligible Hispanic voters. On the contrary, the members of Romney's coalition were beginning to be seen as the racist minority leading up to the November election.
Romney's attempt to win the 2012 election was a difficult task considering his demographics were becoming the minority and had very specific and controversial views. This picture from the 2012 Republican National Convention portrays the all-white audience who appears to be deeply in prayer. A good example is the issue of abortion. Romney is against abortion, and so are the members of his coalition. But he had to make sure to run ads pointing out that he was for abortion in cases of rape, and also if the baby was risking the life of the mother, in order not to give up any chance of receiving votes of more liberal Americans.
You know, those ads saying Mitt Romney would ban all abortions and contraception seemed a bit extreme. So I looked into it. Turns out Romney doesn't oppose contraception at all. In fact, he thinks abortion should be an option in cases of rape, incest, or to save a mother's life. This issue is important to me, but I'm more concerned about the debt our children will be left with. I voted for President Obama last time, but we just can't afford 4 more years.
I'm Mitt Romney, and I approve this message.
Obama appealed to his coalition by targeting their interests and letting them know that he supported them. An example is gay rights. All throughout his first 4 years in office and in his campaign, Obama supported gay rights and marriage, resulting in him receiving a staggering 99% of the gay community's votes in 2012.
If I was a kid in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 14, 15 years old, and I watched the evening news with my parents, and the sitting president of the United States said, I support gay marriage, it would have changed a lot. And I don't know if he knows how many lives he's changing by just saying that simple thing. He's saving lives, really, and it's very moving, and I wish I had that when I was a kid, and I'm also so happy for the kids that have that now.
They're going to grow up into a time that is not something that we can even, I think, imagine. That has to do with finally having a president who is really getting things done and talking about our issues.
You are not alone. There are people out there who love you and care about you just the way you are.
Also, Obama was able to get 60% of the youth's vote, in part because of many celebrities voicing their positive opinions of him prior to the election. Rapper Jay-Z dedicated an entire concert to Obama's support, and his wife Beyoncé wrote a personal letter to Michelle Obama praising her leadership.
To me, the idea of America is that no matter who you are, what you look like, or where you come from, you can make it if you try. Jay-Z did. He didn't come from power or privilege. He got ahead because he worked hard, learned from his mistakes, and just plain refused to quit. That's the promise of this country, and all of us have the obligation to keep that promise alive.
For so long, there was a voice that was silenced out there, as far as exercising the right to vote. I think it was a voice that was silent because people had lost hope. They didn't believe that their voice mattered or counted. We thought it was just politics, people going back and forth, and at the end of the day, it never trickled down to where we live.
Other famous figures, like Ian Somerhalder and Neil Patrick Harris, told their fans to make sure to give their vote to Obama on Election Day on public sites like Twitter. TV channels like MTV even reported about YouTube videos featuring a dubbed Obama fake singing popular songs like MC Hammer's Can't Touch This, further popularizing him with the younger demographic through social media.
Can't touch this. 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 Music hits me so hard, makes me say, oh my Lord, thank you for blessing me with a mind to run and to think. It feels good when you know you're down a super dope homeboy from the dope town, and I'm known as such. And this is a beat you can't touch. I told you, homeboy, can't touch this. Can't touch this. Can't touch this. Break it down.
All of this publicity was extremely helpful in Obama winning the hearts of the younger demographic and indirectly the whole nation. He won over Romney in 2012 with 332 electoral votes.
Overall, even though Reagan and Romney had almost the exact same coalitions to target, the results were different due to differing ways in which all 4 candidates in the 2 different elections targeted their coalitions. In 1980, Carter was unable to target a specific group, and the groups who did give him their support were not numerous enough at the polls to help. Reagan, on the other hand, was able to use his conservative views and his coalition's power to his advantage, winning him the election. In this past election, Romney's coalition was now the minority and had beliefs which were too controversial to help him get the support of middle-ground Americans. Obama was able to capitalize on his coalition's rising power and the social media to ensure his victory on November 6th.